You are now tuned into the Black Law Students Association of Canada's YouTube.
Just to all our viewers here, I want to welcome you to the BLSA Canada Fireside series that we're having. My name is Kelsey Sibanda, and I am a law student at the University of New Brunswick. And I'm really excited to get into this, and I'm part of the BLSA's Communications Committee. So today I'm joined by Judge St. Pierre, who is a judge at the Provincial Court of British Columbia. And prior to being appointed as a judge, Judge St. Pierre practiced criminal law, and he recently helped fund a new bursary for Black law students at the University of British Columbia Faculty of Law. So we're really honored to have you here, Judge St. Pierre, and thank you again for joining us.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure to be with you.
All right, so Judge St. Pierre, can you please introduce yourself by telling us about your law school journey and your career and any fun facts that you may want to share?
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess I started out, my commencement was in Vancouver. I was born in Vancouver. I know a little bit about my biological parents because I was adopted at birth, but I now know some about my biological parents. My dad was from Trinidad, my biological father. My mom was it was white, a Russian Mennonite. And I was born in the 60s, so I'm going to age myself right now. And that union was not going to work in some communities. So I was adopted, into a mixed race family. So I had there was 5 adopted kids in my family. I had a Black brother. I had a Indigenous sister. I had a red-haired, freckled white brother. It was like a total United Nations family. So, and we had foster kids over the time too. So at any one time we might have up to 10 kids in the house. So it's busy. It's a busy family. I was my brother and I were the oldest. So we stayed in BC for a while and then moved out to Edmonton, Alberta, which I know you're familiar with. Yes. To a little town called Sherwood Park. It was outside of Edmonton, actually. Did high school there. It was a school of like 2,000 kids, and there was maybe 4 or 5 Black kids in the entire school. So it was, when you grow up Black in Western Canada, it's a different experience for sure, because you are in the extreme minority to the point of, you being a token really in a lot of situations where you're in. So, eventually I went to high school there, and music was always a huge part of my life. My mom's a musician. So, and I've always played. So I played in the band to put myself through school. And I went to University of Alberta for my undergraduate degree in psychology and philosophy, which I loved. I think the best years of your life are those undergraduate years. I still have fond memories of it, hanging out in Hub Mall and eating at Ho Ho's Chinese food. And I don't even think it's there anymore, but I loved it. And, I was part of a little radical group of socialists that wanted to change the world, and it was fun. I finished that. I didn't know what I wanted to do with that at that point in time. I was 17 when I went to university, and I didn't really have a chance to sort of sort things out. So I thought, well, I'm going to be a professional musician. I mean, how hard can it be, right? So I did that for a while. Worked at a music store to pay the bills and did music. I did that for 3-4 years, probably 4 years. And that too was fun. That was a great part of my youth. But my friends, the friends that you go to school with and stuff, they're passing you by. They're going on to do, careers in professions and doing things like that, and actually making some money. And I got to a point where I was saying to myself, well, I can tough this out, or I can get a backup plan going. And, there's a good friend of mine who was the lead singer in a band that I was playing in, then went on to law school. In fact, he's a professor of law at the University of Alberta. His name is Tim Caulfield. And we were bandmates for the longest time. And he went on to law school at Dalhousie, and he became a law professor eventually. But when he went to law school, I was like, wait a minute, if he can go to law school, I can go to law school. And Tim is a very, very, very bright guy. But I always thought it was the purview of blue blooders to go to law school, but it's not, obviously. But so I went to University of Calgary for law school, which I actually love too, because it's a small school. It's like 60 kids in every year, and it was fantastic. I met one other Black student there in my time there. Was a guy named Ed Washington, was a mature student who had a master's in film from Stanford, and he was a very fascinating guy. He had been a Black Panther in the Berkeley scene in the 60s, and really fascinating dudes. And he sort of stoked my love for that kind of advocacy kind of work again. So I didn't stay in Alberta because it's too cold, as you know. There's 10-month winters. They get to you after a while. And I immediately went from there to Vancouver, back to where I was born. And then I got a job with I wanted to do criminal law. And part of the reason I wanted to do that was an arrest when I was about 18, when I was in university. I was playing in a band, and I got arrested for wearing a studded wristband, which the police officer, who was a very ornery guy, thought was a prohibited weapon. Of course it's not, but I had to go through this whole scenario, getting a lawyer, getting the charges eventually withdrawn, and then realizing how much discretion the police have to interrupt your life if they want to. And I wanted to be the agent between the state and an accused person who makes sure that justice is actually done. So that's part of the reason why I went to law school.
Thank you for sharing that. Moving along here, so you played a role in the BLSA Canada's beginning years, and we'd love to hear more about what that was like for you as a young law student, and why did you think it was so important for the BLSA Canada, the Black Law Students Association, to exist?
Yeah, well, it was interesting times. That was I started law school in 1991. And I think that was the first year of, that the Black Law Students Association of Canada actually got organized as a national group. It was a challenge for them because, it started obviously in Toronto, I think, but for them reaching out across the country to find other Black law students at the other institutions was really difficult. As you can imagine, you phone up a school and you say, can you put me in touch with your Black students? And the school's inevitable response was something like, well, we can't identify who our Black students are. Well, and we were like, just look at them and just tell us who they are so we can get in touch with them. The first conference that we had was actually in Toronto. The main founder, the person, right at the start was Margaret Parsons. I'm just going to throw out some names here because some people who have been around for a lot longer than the current students they won't remember some of these names, but they'll remember them as they'll remember them as lawyers. Margaret Parsons. There was Jackie Lawrence. There was a fellow named Courtney Kazembe, Rudy Grant. Other names that were there in the early years with Michelle Williams, Terry Lynn Davidson, J.R. Richards. I got involved early on the executive. So I became the vice president of the Western region. And that was my job to try to get all the Black students in the Western region signed up for BLSAC. And again, it was tough because you have to use creative ways to identify those people, to reach out and identify those people. So, and then we had conferences in Windsor in the following years, Ottawa, Halifax. And it was good. It was good. It was unbelievable to get everyone together, as you can imagine. And it was well funded at that time. I think the Secretary of State for Canada had provided significant funding for conferences for people to travel back and forth. But that department was eliminated in, I think it was 1993, and it became quite a bit more challenging to fund the organization at that point. I think as far as importance, it was incredibly important. Well, the first conference I went to, I went out to this conference, and as you can imagine, like York University and so, the Central Canadian schools had a way more Black students than we did out in the Western regions. And to be in a group of like 100 Black law students was unbelievably empowering. And it was so great to be there, as a majority in that little meeting, coming from a small Western school. I mean, it continued with cable, and it continued with, and this is a huge plug for the National Bar Association in the US, because many of us involved in Canada in cable, Black lawyers, go to the conference in the US, the National Bar Association, which is African American lawyers and judges. You can't imagine those things. I mean, that's thousands of Black lawyers and judges at conferences in the US, and those conferences are, it'll blow your mind. So I recommend to everybody who gets a chance to go to a National Bar Association event in the US, because it will open your mind about what the possibilities are for Black lawyers.
Okay. And Judge St. Pierre, do you have any advice that you would like to share for racialized minority groups, especially Black students interested in studying law, or maybe a recent Black law graduates that are trying to navigate the legal profession?
Yeah, it's not easy, is it? Getting into law school isn't easy. And I think people should take some comfort from the students that are in law school already. Obviously, you should take some huge comfort from the fact that you actually get in. That's a simple and undeniable fact. It's hard to get in. That's all there's to it. To the students who are, out there trying to do that, it is within your reach. It is within the reach of any intelligent, hardworking, motivated person. And again, I used to think it was the exclusive domain of the rich kids, who lived up the hill, white kids. I believed that when I was a kid. I don't know why. It's because it's all the things you see in the media, and you never see yourself represented, especially in Western Canada. When I was going through that the situation with that wrongful arrest and things like that. I mean, I didn't see any. I saw one. What really heartened me was I saw one Black judge up on the stand, Lionel Jones in Alberta, a judge named Lionel Jones in Edmonton, and that was amazing. But I always thought it was that. So you have to know that you can do it, which is a hard thing to know, because you don't often see a lot of examples of it. But my advice is you do well in any undergraduate program that you're in. And it doesn't really matter what undergraduate program you pick. You got to do well in it. That's bottom line. And then you could probably go to law school. The LSAT's another question. And Kelsey, the LSAT it's not the best test of who's going to be a good lawyer or not. It really is. The difficulty in the LSAT is not the questions. It's not the content. It's just those arbitrary time limits they put on you. Mm-hmm. And anybody, if you had time, you could get through that exam and go, wow, I nailed it. Like I killed it. So my advice is to practice those exams under the time limits they give you. And if you're a super anxious kind of nervous person, you should practice as many as you possibly can, because it's just really, to me, it was just the time And I'm super chill person, but it's just those time limits that were the difficult part. But as Black people, we're always struck by this idea of meritocracy, and but it relies on this kind of false assumption that everybody has an equal chance of gaining the merit to be involved in a meritocracy, and that's not true. We know that. Social scientists have proved that it's just not true. It's harder to find. It's harder for racialized grads to get jobs. That's all there is to it. People who do hiring hire people who are like them, and that means as another person that you're going to have a more difficult time. That creates challenges that are tough. That's the reality of it. You can whine about it, or you can use your skills and your ingenuity to persuade any folks that do have power over those decisions that your presence is going to be a benefit. That's all there's to it. I mean, anyone, I think these days can make a very strong argument that there's a robust business case to be made for diversity in any corporate setting or any legal setting or anywhere. I mean, there just is. So I think and find a mentor, and you'll find those in cable. You'll find those in the judiciary. I always have my phone number and door open for anyone who wants to talk to me. So there are a number of different ways to navigate into it, but those are some of them, I guess.
All right, yeah, that's really good too, because I was also going to ask you, because we know that there aren't that many Black lawyers out there, so I was going to ask you what advice would you have for Black law students or people who are interested in law that want to find maybe a Black mentor that could help them navigate the process, maybe give them some sort of advice. But you've answered that question very well, and thank you very much for that. So another question that I have for you is, if you were currently a Black law student in your law school journey, what kind of legacy would you want to leave behind in a way that would function as a ladder to help other law students or prospective students better navigate their law school journey?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I think it would be very helpful for people who are currently in law school, say you're a Black student, and then you graduate. I think, and I did this at my school and continue to do it, is to go to the dean or whoever it is when you graduate, and you say, look, I know there's going to be kids coming behind me that are going to need a hand. I'm going to keep my contact information with the school, and I would appreciate you passing it on to any other students that come, something like that. Because you have to, as a lawyer, when you go through law school and you pass on to the profession, you have to get involved with helping others reaching their goals and helping them on their road to success. Because you need to, I see a lot of I see some of us who get to the promised land, and they get themselves inserted in a big law firm, and they disappear. And I've met some of these lawyers, and I see them, I might run into them at something, some Black lawyer in town, and you're going, well, I don't even know this person. How do I not know this person? They've been practicing for 15 years or something, and they've never been to a community function. They've never shown up for any of but they've never put their hand up to be a role model or a mentor. And maybe that's not the gig for some people. Maybe some people just don't like putting themselves in that situation, but I think they should try, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because, too many of us, I think, as soon as they get as soon as they get to that point, they don't turn back and help others. I mean, if you have the power to inspire someone behind you, why wouldn't you use that? To me, that's a superpower. I mean, it's like, if one of my favorite shows is Luke Cage. He's a black superhero, and everyone's always asking him for help all the time. And he's kind of grouchy and reluctant at times, but then he always gives in because he understands that that's his role in the community. He's got to help out. So I think you have to get involved. You have to get involved in helping those behind you come forward. And if you're a black law student, why not go visit a law school? Organize an event where you get all the black students together at the high school, and you tell them what your road was and help them to decide what they want to do with their life.
That's excellent advice. And yeah, I would like to implement that in my life because this is my first year of law school. So I did join the Black Law Students Association at my school here at UNB, and maybe that's something that I can suggest for us to do, like actually go out to maybe some high schools or to the university, like to the undergraduate, maybe have some sort of program, I guess, or event with the undergrad students, just to let them know, like, hey, like there are some of us here. If you want to reach out, like we're here.
Just seeing the faces is enough to inspire some kids to do it. Just seeing that you're there. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's the power of representation for sure. Yeah. All right, so moving on here. So what were the biggest challenges that you faced first as a Black law student, and then as a Black lawyer, and eventually a judge? And what do you believe helped you to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, well, as a Black law student, yeah, well, and there's many. I mean, there are so many. They're varied, right? When I went to University of Calgary. I mean, one of the first challenges I faced, I go to University of Calgary when I was living in Edmonton, and I go down there to try to find some place to live. So I apply for some little basement suites around the university there. I didn't have a lot of money, but I was going to do what I could. And I show up to an ad, a basement suite in this lady's house. I get to the door, and all of a sudden the place isn't available anymore. Like she said it's been rented. I was too late to. She apologized and said it was rented. And I knew right away what was going on. Mm-hmm. I had a friend of mine, a Caucasian friend of mine, phone her up immediately and go down there. And all of a sudden, it was a different story. It was still available, and she was willing to rent. And I was just like, wow, it's like, I know it existed, but you just don't think that it's so palpable and in your face all the time until you see that. But when I got into the school, despite those sort of incidents that happen, in my view, the presence of racism is not it's not crushing. It's not all consuming unless you want to make it that way. The bulk of my experience at university was positive, probably partly because I'm a naturally confident person, but confidence isn't something that you're gratuitously gifted from God or something like that. It's something you work at. I mean, it's the child of competence, and you need to work at that. I mean, that's all there is to it. So I realize that when you're in in that situation, that it's an unfortunate artifact of this historic marginalization of Black people. One of the artifacts is, and it became clear when people are going off to get jobs and stuff after school, is that you don't have the luxury of sort of being mediocre to get it. You don't have that. And there's so many students that I graduated with that were mediocre students, is all there to it. But they had the uncle in the law firm, or they had some, relative who's going to help them out and give them an articling gig, or they had some connections they could rely on to go out there and get a job, despite marks that were not, as good as yours. That's all. So you don't have that luxury. I mean, you don't have, as a marginalized person already going out there, you don't have the luxury to be mediocre. You have to, it does steal your resolve about being, doing the best you can. You have to be good. It's hard. Sometimes you have to go somewhere for a few years where you don't want to go. I know my mentor had to go up north in northern BC to get a job, but he went to school in the 60s. So sometimes, but there's jobs, but sometimes they're in places where urban folks, like most of us are, like, just don't want to go. I mean, let's face it, they just don't want to go.
Yeah.
But the path you got to forge for yourself, and those are decisions you have to make for yourself. But there's so many challenges when you talk about race. You talk about, if you take a human rights case and you're talking about some racialized case involving race. I mean, I don't know if it was like this with you, but as soon as you start talking about those things, everybody in the class like turns to you. Like, what's David going to think about this thing? I don't know. Are we offending him, or should we get his perspective before we open our mouth, or what should we? It's an interesting navigation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. For sure. All right, Judge St. Pierre. So I'd like to give you the final word to say anything to our students that you want them to know and take to heart.
Well, I would say, I mean, a few things. Confidence is so incredibly valuable in every aspect of your future life, and I run into some students who have a bit of a defeatist attitude coming out, and they find they might have a little bit of a struggle getting a job, and I can see they're starting to get defeated, and it hurts me because as soon as you allow that to infiltrate your temperament, you've already lost the game. But it is hard to stay up all the time. I mean, don't accept that you have any limitations, because the world is going to suggest that you do, and you in reality, obviously, if you're being pragmatic, of course there are limitations out there and barriers that are out there, but if you let that infiltrate your psyche, if you let that define how you're going to proceed, you've lost the game. I mean, that's all there is to it. You're going to have disappointments. There's going to be challenges that impact your ability to move forward, your temperament. I've always been one of these people who think you can choose your temperament. And I believe that from the time I took philosophy when I was an undergraduate. I had some great classes. And I've always been that person. If you choose positivity, everyone has the power to choose what your temperament is. That's all there is to it. Outside factors aside, you have that power. And once you start to believe that, it becomes self-empowering. It's the engine that keeps you going when the times get tough. That's all there is to it. I would suggest that things like be visible in your community. Don't, achieve, like we talked about, don't achieve and then retreat. That's a killer, I think, in our community, is this idea of inserting yourself into the majority, assimilating, going to the country club, and and doing all those things. That's fine, but if you disappear from your community when you have the power to do some good, then I think you've failed yourself and you failed everybody else. I think that throughout your journey, you have to keep a balance in life. I see a lot of students these days blowing their brains out in trying to focus on that one thing, and that's just head in book and studying. And I understand the reason for that. I mean, I get that the challenges are out there for people to succeed, and that a lot of that success depends on your outcomes on an exam or whatever. But you need a balance. It'll make you a better student. It'll make you a better person. My therapy is music. You know, it's always been that way. I'm sitting in my studio right now. What I have out in the back, and I have a little music studio, and that's how I get my therapy. You know, embrace some kind of therapy that you can do to balance your life. And there's a great book by a BC author named Crawford Killian, and the book is about Black pioneers in BC. And the title is great. I've always loved the title because it's a message to folks, and it's entitled "Go Do Some Great Thing." And I love that message. Go do some great thing. You know, and great can be defined in a whole different number of ways, but that's my message to our population and our people, is to go do some great thing. That may be helping one person come behind you. It may be becoming a captain of industry. It may be, you know, becoming the managing partner at your big law firm. But whatever it is, you got to remember that there's a world out there that could use your talents, your expertise, and your help. A lot of kids could use that, and I think you have an obligation to use that power.
Thank you for sharing that, and thank you so much again for joining us today at the BLSA Canada's Fireside Chat.
Anyone who's coming to you know, BC for work or for whatever purpose, I invite them to get in touch with me. I'm easy to find, and I'm happy to host them and to help them as much as I possibly can.
Thank you so much. I'm sure that will be very beneficial